Two major announcements from two tech companies. Apple had the courage to remove one of the most standardized cable ports ever created from the new iPhone 7. The Apple Watch 2 won't turn any heads in terms of design, so will people buy it? The AirPods feature some incredible audio technology, but will folks adopt that Commander Uhura Trekkie look? Or if Apple isn't your flavor, we also have this beast of a phone to talk about called the LG V20. These stories, plus we're answering your questions from Twitter and the live chat, so make sure you're charged and ready for episode 217 of the Pocketnow Weekly. This weekly podcast is where we dissect and discuss those gadgets that make our lives mobile, smartphones, tablets, and wearables. It's all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid, and the term earpod sounded like something which would have required a visit to the school nurse. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, senior editor at Pocketnow.com, blasting this signal from sunny Southern California, fresh from his trip back from Berlin. And we're joined this week by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jaime Rivera.
I'm really happy that you're fresh, dude. I am still not.
Yeah, I was like, I should have put fresh in giant bunny rabbit ear quotes there. It's I'm still recovering from that massive trip over to Berlin and all of our exciting coverage from the IFA 2016 show floor.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, we're also joined by plucky podcast producer, Mr. Jules Wong. How's it going out on the East Coast there, buddy boy?
I feel like a frozen TV meal right now.
Yeah, you do, because that's hot. Oh, no, it's cold. I guess that's the point, is it's cold.
Only if you nuke me first.
It's not really cold.
Just nuke me first.
How is it in Boston? Here in New York, it's not cold.
No, it's hot all the way down the seaboard. So
there we go.
We're sharing that hot, humid weather, and I suppose it's just so fine in SoCal right now.
Feels like home.
Yeah, well, actually, you know, what is it? What are we're doing? This is actually going to be one of the warmer days of the week before we hit like a nice little sort of as much of a fall as we're going to get here in Southern California. So I think it's going to hit a high of 90 today. So that's not too bad. That's
Enjoy.
Sounds delicious.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So, folks, before we get into tech tomfoolery, Mr. Wong, would you be so kind as to explain how people will be able to get in touch with us for this show, especially considering all of the changes that we're trying to troubleshoot while we're producing this show in real time?
I was about to pretend that the last 15 minutes did not happen in this time frame, but you know what? It's just been fun getting through microphone problems, feedback, all that. We cut this from the YouTube. I might, if you're listening to this in the podcast, the audio podcast, I'm going to set this all the way in the back so that you can find out yourself what's going on. But anyways, you can also give us live feedback if you're here in the video lands. Just head on over to our Twitter page and tweet at us with the hashtag PN Weekly and just go at it crazy. We're talking LG, we're talking Apple, talking the iPhone 7 and V20 today. So tweets about those, very pertinent, very useful to us, and we'd appreciate those. And if you can't come in, if you are listening, as I said, mortem is that a term I can use here? Post-mortem.
Sure, we'll say that's a thing.
Yeah, podcast at pocketnow.com and send away any emails that you may wish for us to answer.
Yeah, we already have a couple PN Weekly comments because I mentioned Commander Uhura in regards to the AirPods. From Joel G. Joseph, PN Weekly had a Star Trek 50 reference, and Andrew Wallace, Mr. @FatProduce. Everyone should be wearing Star Trek shirts, and of course here I am rocking my Millennium Falcon t-shirt. So I'm totally wrong.
I don't have Star Trek shirts. I need to fix that.
Yeah,
I need to fix that.
I think we should all invest in like matching. Well, but we would have to decide which Trek.
Well, I'm wearing a Super Mario t-shirt, by the way.
Oh, you're gonna do Super Mario instead?
Oh yeah.
So can you see the?
Oh yeah. That's cool.
Well, that's lovely. That's
especially with the hidden coin, the hidden coin jump right there. Nice,
so the picture, the T-shirt is an American flag, and can you describe what's at the bottom corner there?
Because all the red and white.
It's flamethrower Mario about to. He's stomping over a coin box. Which is part of the flag because the flag is made of bricks, just like old Mario 1.
Good.
We have to commemorate Mario. we have to commemorate
Yeah.
Mario reaching iOS.
Yeah, well, definitely something that I want to talk. Let's jump in right there because I think that was actually a really huge piece of news that I was kind of disappointed didn't seem to get like a big reaction from people. So I tweeted out like, "This is a huge deal, Mario on iOS," and a lot of people sort of shrugged. And like, I don't think you guys understand. Even though this is just a silly little running game, this is like one of the biggest licensing multimedia deals in the history of licensing IP on different platforms. Mario doesn't go to non-Nintendo stuff.
No, I feel that Apple simply owned it. I feel that if they would have left this announcement for the end, it wouldn't have had the same effect. You heard the crowd. The crowd went wild.
Nuts.
Everybody went nuts. And why? Because I mean, we all probably Mario is not as relevant for newer generations as it was for us. But for us, we grew. I don't know. I don't know. I do know that. Hey, my kids love playing Super Smash Brothers, but it's because they still have they still have a Wii. Because I've always felt that Nintendo has been more of a kids. They've always been more oriented,
like a family friendly. Yeah,
family friendly. And,
I think that the gameplay dynamics and just the whole theme of Super Mario Galaxy, those games for the Wii, have just been, been able to be revolutionized, have, just reintroduce Mario to our younger kids. So, yeah, I definitely agree that it's still relevant, not relevant.
So it's the reason why my kids have a Wii, but I don't know. It's not the same case of every generation. Right now we're in the PlayStation and Xbox generation where Mario is irrelevant, where Nintendo is dying. And obviously Nintendo is making this move because they need that relevance again. And, I think that Tim Cook started so this is a very interesting fun fact about trade show coverage at IFA with Juan. I have never met an individual that plays more games with his phone than Juan.
True story.
I like playing games, but I've always been, like, for example, I have to be carrying a Moga around. I love controllers.
Yeah,
I love the concept of controllers, and I don't like not being able to feel the buttons. And so I've always been a gaming controller user, and because I did not bring the Moga, I simply did not play anything. But my God, I think Tim Cook had a point where he said, the largest gaming platform right now are mobile devices.
True.
And I think that whether Nintendo likes it or not, even if they're the medium or not the medium, it doesn't really matter. What's important is for these brands to not die off over the necessity to keep Nintendo being a relevant brand, where Mario on its own is a brand.
Yeah.
With or without Nintendo.
Well, but I think all of those points, especially in what you guys were talking about
happening here.
In introducing Mario to other generations, this is one of those opportunities for Nintendo to show that this character is still relevant. And especially in wake of the fact that Nintendo hasn't had quite the same strength of hardware and console sales they've had in the past. I think this was a brilliant strategy to bring these two together. And answering some of the questions that we have in the live chat, and also Joel G. Joseph on Twitter using PN Weekly, the PN Weekly hashtag, will Mario be on Android at all? Or is it Apple only? And from what I understood, this is an exclusivity window for iOS, not exclusivity total.
It's limited, and it's going to be on Android at some point. But until that point, which we do not know, this game called Super Mario Run, basically, it's a more fleshed out platformer, 2D platformer than other things. I mean, we're talking about one-on-one competition.
Think about it. What game is this? Just think about it. Think about it. Where did it pull the inspiration? No. Where did it pull the inspiration? Flappy Bird.
You tell me.
This is pretty much Flappy Bird.
Oh, you think Flappy Bird? I was going to say this looks like Mario Temple Run to me.
Think about it. This is Flappy Bird. What all you're doing is tapping on the display for Mario to jump. It's pretty much Flappy Bird. They're just pulling on that concept, and that's what they're building upon.
I was busy trying to write news pieces around this and not looking at the video game footage. So you tell me what's
Jules, you had to take a second just to check it out. But no, it's especially I think when we saw what happened with Pokemon Go, we got a clear indication that this isn't just a fad, that this wasn't just some sort of experiment, that this was a very successful way to bring content based on a certain intellectual property to different markets and to different handsets and to different devices. And so I'm not shocked that Nintendo made the move to eventually bring Mario to mobile phones. I'm actually surprised it happened so quickly. That from Pokemon Go, and I'm sure they've been working on this for a little while, but from Pokemon Go, that the next property that they were ready to release was probably the biggest icon of the Nintendo platform in Super Mario.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I would be surprised because
I mean that you didn't do like a Zelda or Metroid. You didn't try and slow play it. You went to the big dog. Yeah. You went to Super Mario, dropped that off. And we're going to see what else they can follow it up with.
Nintendo is the most agnostic out of the major gaming console companies. I mean, you have Sony, and they have their own interests in mobile, and you have Microsoft. They also have their own terrible as both are. Nintendo seems to be getting away with something here.
nice try there, Jules. Like, you're just heading off any potential like Sony ire that I might have had. Instead of getting bogged down in that, let's shift gears here. I know we sort of got a little off topic or a little out of order, but I want to start the show off with because people are already asking me a ton of questions about this. Let's move and see if we can't chat about the LG V20. Let's knock that out since we have the one major phone announcement from LG this week. Already getting so from Andrew Wallace at Fat Produce asking if this is going to be my new Spirit phone. Of course, I was a huge fan of the V10 last year. So we got a little hands-on time with the V20. It was definitely a pre-release product that we did most of our initial testing and first impressions on. So we're gonna have to shift some of that commentary over once we finally get retail units coming up soon. But we do have videos out comparing the V20 to the V10, the G5, then doing a full camera tour, full audio tour. You can catch all of those videos on Pocketnow.com or on YouTube.com/Pocketnow. And because you were off covering the Axon 7 Mini while I was spending a little time with the V20, I really just kind of wanted to get your impressions, Jaime, on what you think, on how you feel about LG's reveal here. This was a very busy season for LG, a very busy window for LG to drop their second phone of the year against announcements from IFA, Note 7 news, there was a lot of that, and then the next day we're talking iPhone.
Mm-hmm. So this is funny. Tony reaches out to me and he's like, so who do you want to do the LG V20 coverage? And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, because Juan really wants to review that phone. And then he looks at me and he stares at me. I mean, Juan really, really, really wants to review that phone.
I don't know that there were enough reallys in that.
And so I'm like, are you sure he really wants to go? Because if he does, tell Juan to go. It's so I guess I was really, just to give you an idea, my favorite phone last year was the LG G4. I did not spend enough time with the V10 because by the time I was able to get my V10 unit in January, it was already Galaxy S7 season.
Yeah, that's true.
So I wasn't really able to play with it. Like, Jules, you were the one that received one of our units, I think.
Well, no, I actually bought my unit, and everyone was, Michael Fisher, who back then was kind of incapacitated because he was dealing with the Lumia and the Priv. So I was basically left to do my review on my unit, and also, interesting fact, I actually broke 2 units, the screens on 2 units. I had to pay.
Oh, wow.
That's impressive.
Screen repairs, because apparently you should never shoot review videos outside or on gravel.
Well, I have a V10 here in case you wanted. But so the thing is, it's not until I was really exposed to the phone that I feel that LG really did not show off everything that the V10 was. Yeah. For me, my top of mind of the V10 last year was it's got a dual screen. And I guess that's all. For me, I guess LG did not do a really good job at telling us it's the same great camera of the G4, but you've got, an audio DAC that you won't hear on any other phone. You've got mil-spec protection. I didn't hear any.
I mean, it was imaged by carriers as, they were kind of stricken between multimedia, which was at T-Mobile's angle, and then multitasking, productivity, because of the second screen. It's the most visually eye-catching thing about
part of it. Yeah,
and then most people were disappointed because it had the Snapdragon 808, and so. And
it had 64 gigs of storage natively and 4 gigs of RAM.
I know, but I feel that LG kind of did that same mistake this year. I feel that the company could have looked for a better window to announce it.
Absolutely.
Something that would have not stolen the thunder of this phone, because honestly, after seeing Juan's coverage and everything, I was like, oh wow, I wish I would have gone with you. Like, this phone looks really, really cool. I really wanted the G5 to be my phone of the year because of that dual camera approach. I was at the presentation of the G5 and I was totally sold by the presentation. And sadly, the phone, I remember when I unboxed the phone, dude, I set an alarm because I knew the phone was going to be an early arrival on UPS. I knew that phone was going to be here at 7 a.m. I set an alarm for 6. I was like, I want to be ready. It's not because I wanted to do that unboxing or anything. It wasn't that. I really, really, really wanted that G5. And then I pull it out, and the thing just scratched my hand. And I'm like, what?
That's terrible.
I'm like, what? And so I guess this is the G5 that I would have wanted.
This is the impression. The first impression.
I'm just hoping we get 2 units, Juan, so that you're not the only one that gets all the fun.
Hey, 3 units, make it 3. Come on.
It's like, so LG, we're gonna need a dozen LG V20s to properly conduct all of our reviews and tests.
But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I feel that this phone is being underestimated. After everything you showed off at the video, especially the whole quad DAC thing and everything, I feel that this phone deserved more limelight. It deserved more predominance. And I don't know. I hope that it doesn't end up being just another V10 for LG where people didn't really care much about it, even though it was a great phone.
I have to say that was one of the interesting, and I don't want to use a word like concerning, but it was sort of a troubling aspect of the conversation when we were bouncing messages between us and LG PR that their expectations on this phone are very low. In terms of overall sales, and then how different markets might be adopting the phone itself. Like we're hearing, it's probably going to be slow played in Europe if it ever gets released there at all. And then that the carriers are exerting a lot of influence over what features or accessories might be included. So like in the United States, we might not get those B&O earbuds.
Yeah.
Just like we didn't get the AKG earbuds. So if you had a South Korean V10 like I do, you got these amazing AKG earbuds in with the phone. If you got your V10 through T-Mobile, that was gone. And so when we look at all of those influences coming together, all of those aspects coming together, and especially because I completely agree with you, Jaime, I feel like LG's messaging on this phone isn't on point. They're not really getting across what makes this device special. Yeah. I feel like we're probably in store for another fan favorite device. Like if you're a fan of this phone, you will know about it and you will be passionate about it, but it's going to barely scratch.
It's going to be you.
It's just going to be us, yeah.
Let me be a little bit outside the loop here because I haven't touched the phone. I haven't even, thought of the phone for a little bit since the event that night when all the embargoes went up. So the, news coverage, and I'm talking about business press here, so Reuters and CNBC and all that, and even like some of the mainstream like local stations, CNN, some of the feeds, even deigned to mention the LG V20, to even mention this launch. And you know why they mentioned this launch? It was in the face of the Galaxy Note 7 and its battery recall. Yeah. And combine that with the fact that LG is trying to remake itself after the horrible G5 sales performance. This is what people are somewhat paying attention to now. They're starting to pay attention to the LG V20. And I think LG does have a more cohesive message this time around because we've seen a concerted effort with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and his hit record thing.
Well, they're reusing Hit Record Joe.
Yeah, hit record Joe. More multimedia.
I guess it's just Hit Record. Sorry, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is behind Hit Record, and they were responsible for that V10 ad with people like whistling, sort of a day in the life kind of stuff. Yeah, that daily music that you create. And so they're going to be. I actually saw the if you go to Hit Record, you can actually see the project that they're creating that they're going to be working the V20 into also. So like little things like that really did help sort of bring exposure to the V10. But I kind of feel stuff like that still falls into the same trap that we saw with the G5 advertising this year, where it's really neat that you gave me Jason Statham in a wig, in a dress, riding a motorcycle.
Why is that neat?
Well, it's funny because it's Jason Statham, so that is neat, but you told me nothing about the phone outside of some wacky random stuff that you would have to watch the ad a couple of times to glean. Well, HTC is definitely
Robert Downey Jr.
So anyway,
that's what I call terrible advertising.
Oh, just awful though. But and again, in getting across to consumers, why would you consider this phone? What would be the killer app for someone considering this phone, especially since that conversation is a bit more focused on the V? I don't believe LG has any illusions of this being some sort of widely accepted, soft around the edges, all-rounder, good enough at everything kind of device. I still expect that even with some of the improvements to the battery capacity and we get a more power efficient and more powerful processor, this probably will not be a battery champ. This will be a hard, on-the-rails content creation and multimedia consumption device. Those two focuses taking us outside of the normal sort of, well, the Note is good for overall productivity, and the Galaxy S is sort of an all-rounder, and the iPhone is good at everything. I think LG has a winner here if they're nailing this demographic, but I don't feel they're reaching that demographic. Yeah,
the problem is marketing. I'm gonna take you back to the old Beats Audio ads, pre-Apple. This is pre-Apple. You would see these either soccer players or baseball players or basketball players exiting a room where they're full of the press. The press is complaining about something or asking them information, and they just don't want to comment. They don't want to comment. And all they do is put on their Beats headphones in their ears. Everything goes blank, and they start playing music. So what did Beats say with that ad? It doesn't matter what noise you're hearing beside you. You put on your Beats, and the world goes away.
All right. So I'll counter that with the iPod ads, which were well into the iPod's I don't know, life cycle. And we saw these stupid ads of people's silhouettes dancing in, colorful backgrounds.
But that's one of the most iconic ads. Why? It wasn't because of the black silhouettes. Dude, what color are the headphones that you're wearing right now? Or what color are the headphones of pretty much almost every phone that launches with included earbuds?
I'll throw out the hint that they're the color of the headphones he's wearing right now.
They're white. So the whole idea was to create a brand around wearing white headphones. Right. And back in the day, the only way you can get white headphones was with an iPod. Why the black silhouette? It was because they didn't want to deter. What's the problem with the?
I don't even get the whole white earphones thing in the first place.
But that's because we're unhip.
You're complaining about a Jason Statham ad that is diluting the whole limelight of the G5. What they did with the iPod ads was simply, let's remove whatever artists we can put here or whatever dancer we can put here, because it's not about them. The ad is about the iPod. The ad is about making the iPod look hip. When you look at iPad ads, what do you see? You see people working with a tablet in so many different ways. And even though I still debate if the iPad is good enough for work, it's what I'm using to record the audio for this video.
I'm not the average consumer. I'm sorry, people.
Well, that's also like the conversations we need to have in terms of outreach. Because I completely agree with Jaime here. I think the least successful ads are the ones that focus on making celebrities do wacky things.
On a Robert Downey Jr. That's not an ad.
And I have to say that the only company that I think has actually successfully given me a celebrity-focused ad with Samsung this year,
Yeah.
where
Oh my
what's his
God,
name? Lil Wayne
Chris,
pouring champagne on his Note 7.
Well,
I had a number of people in my circles of
It's just-
family and friends who didn't know who that guy was.
Let-
But
no, the Christoph Waltz,
oh yeah,
the
that's
Galaxy
all
Note
right.
7.
pretty wacky.
That
I
was
think
the most
all of
these-
hilarious ad.
What all of
That's
these
true.
things have in common, all these ads, is that they focus on one USP, unique selling point, and have some celebrity really hammer it home. Any like relatable person. And well, I'd argue that with Jason Statham, he wasn't one person, he was 50 billion in those 30 seconds, and that sort of diluted from the point. And you know what, that was fun. But with we haven't seen any campaign with LG and its V20 just yet. Maybe the whole social media, living life and looking at things is great, arts kind of thing is going to be great for them in terms of
LG could definitely
response,
benefit from some grassroots conversation. Joel G. Joseph, using the PN Weekly hashtag, he also put in hashtag no case life. He's referencing the more rugged build construction on the V series phones.
810G transit drop compliant.
That's right. So we're going to be digging in deep.
Flying battery cover compliant. Have you guys seen the Android Authority drop test for the V20? Oh my God! Like that battery cover flew off on every single phone.
But I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't.
Yeah, I dropped my V10. Okay.
No, I'm just going to say, there are a number of different approaches that we can utilize when it comes to device integrity. And like for example, the Flex is an interesting idea from LG in terms of making a more durable device because the entire phone casing can bend.
Yeah.
You can still shatter that screen, but you have to it requires a different type of drop than a glass screen will to shatter. So when you've got a device where the force of an impact can cause the battery to eject, that's the force of the impact causing the battery to eject. If that device is sealed up, there is the potential that the force of that impact is going to ripple through other components where that energy can be expressed in different ways. So it's not necessarily, it looks terrible. It totally does. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if your phone flies to pieces on those pieces that are supposed to come off of the phone.
Yeah, when I can just see the moment when people are like, "Shoot, my battery just fell on the sewer hole." Stuff like that.
Well, I dropped my.
Well, if that happens, I don't know of any phone that I'm going to want to go get.
But wait, let's leave that conversation for the AirPods, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Let's deal with that.
Go ahead, Jules.
No, I was just about to say I do like the whole new approach that LG took to the build. A little more silicon for the back. It's a magnesium aluminum alloy, and then the corners are silicone with an E, polycarbonate, so that hey, it's more shock absorbent. Yeah, radio reception and shock absorbent, 20% more than previous. I don't know.
I will miss the steel rails from the LG V10. I thought that was a sharp look, but all in all, I know we've been getting a lot of comments on the videos on our YouTube channel that the design is super ugly. And I kind of find it charming.
I don't agree.
It's sort of like a BlackBerry and a Motorola had a baby, and it ended up looking like an old ThinkPad. And those are some of my favorite business-looking devices. I think it looks sharp. I think it looks clean.
I think it looks badass. I like it.
And we haven't even touched the software. I don't know how much time.
Let's save that for proper, because I want to say, and I really want to be clear here, we did our testing on pre-release software, very early pre-release software. So I have to believe that LG is going to provide us with the ability to replace the app drawer, just like they did with the G5. Right now, the current skin is very much like an LG flavor of EMUI from a Huawei. You have no app drawer, just everything's on your home screen.
I would argue about that with the app drawer is that Google's in-apps function is meant to sort of be the replacement to that.
Oh, I
And
agree. It's just when it comes to organizing everything, I think there are going to be some old fogies like me that really like the metaphor of shortcuts when I need them for most commonly used things, and then app drawer for dumping everything else in.
And then there's a guy like me who prefers not to dig through the app drawer and organize things in folders. It's
Exactly.
such a fun thing.
Such a wide world of different opinions and cultures and peoples coming together. But
Yeah.
we're going to be digging in super deep on the LG V20, the real camera review. We're going to be throwing it through some of our exacting headphone audio tests, see what's up with all of those quad DACs and amps and whatnot, and then a whole slate of comparisons once we have the final release version of the V20 in our hot little hands. Hopefully we can get one for Jaime too, because I'd love to do sort of a compare and contrast, like see how you feel, especially opposite the Pixels that are going to be coming out, the new iPhones that we're going to shift over to start talking about. And I think there is an interesting fight to be had between a phone like the Note 7, which represents sort of the pinnacle, the top tier, most expensive, and most sort of feature complete idea of a phone from Samsung.
It even explodes.
Versus something like the V20, which I don't think that LG is looking at this to be the winner for everybody. I think LG really is trying to focus this down into a slightly narrower demographic, and those two fighting, especially at the different price points that we're seeing, an almost $900 phone versus, I think T-Mobile listed it early for their pre-orders at $600.
Yeah.
Do you really get $280 more phone on something like the Note 7 if what you care about is photography and multimedia? So definitely a lot of questions that we're going to be digging into and a lot of coverage that we're going to leave. But I think we need to shift gears now and talk about the other major series of announcements that came out of Cupertino. And, of course, Apple took the wraps off of iPhones and Apple Watches and AirPods and stuff. So we're all really excited about that. Woo!
I'm just
no one's joining me on a woo?
No. Tired.
No.
I'm dead.
Well, let's start off with the biggie. Let's start off with the major announcement. Obviously, I think what we were all hoping to see and get good info on was the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. We have two iPhone models. All of those early rumors surrounding a potential iPhone Pro. Obviously, that didn't pan out. We've got the same smaller and bigger general form factors, but we see, I think, a top-to-bottom approach to re-engineering the casing and touching up some of those technology issues that Android and Windows Phone fans have been kind of hammering Apple about over the last year in terms of bringing the iPhone into more current territory against competitors.
Yeah.
Well, I would only argue that would be for the Jet Black, even though water resistance has been applied.
Let's hold off on arguments, Jules. Let's just talk through the iPhone first, so that we can share what devices actually are.
Well, we went into arguments about Mario and the LG V20 before we even dove into the specs.
I know. It's okay.
Oh, man.
It's all right.
Got my fisticuffs ready.
iPhone 7. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my God. I think this is the first time I have been excited over an iPhone since the iPhone 5S. I remember that in the case of the iPhone 5S, it was that fingerprint scanner. We had seen fingerprint scanners for years, but you have to remember back then, no company had implemented it well. And I just saw so much potential in the whole concept of that, plus the larger pixels on the camera. The main reason why I've always been an iPhone user is because, well, number one, I made the jump since the iPhone 3GS, and I've just followed that trend.
Yeah.
But it's also because I've always had to carry two phones. And before that, I had to carry a cell phone, and the PDA. And so I always like to have a small unit to be my phone, and obviously the PDA. And usually what I would do is I would have an iPhone and a Note. Mm-hmm. So it would be whatever current iPhone it was, the smaller variant, plus a Galaxy Note since Galaxy Note 2. I've been a Note user and iPhone user forever. But this is the first time ever that I am really enticed over that iPhone 7 Plus.
Nice.
I am for a couple of reasons. Number one, the whole approach to the dual camera. I can't think of how many times I've been in situations where there's a photo that I want to grab. And you guys know that I do love to do I do love photography. And even though I'm not a professional photographer, not even close to that, I do like to play around a lot with photos. And like, for example, we were at Checkpoint Charlie, Juan.
Yeah.
The photo that I wanted to take at Checkpoint Charlie was actually closer than the one that I published on Instagram. the problem is I couldn't get any closer.
Right.
And obviously, if I digitally zoom to it,
you crop it in.
I was going to crop it in. I was going to lose detail, and I hate zooming into photos because of that crop that's generated. The software never does it well, and obviously, because we've blown into a trend of lesser megapixels in cameras in order for these pixels to have larger microns. Now, this actually hasn't played well over this year, particularly. So I'm really looking forward to see how Apple plays off that topic of zoom, because I can tell you many times where I really don't want to crop into photos, but I really don't want to. I have no way of zooming in, and I really don't want to carry the bulk of an extra lens or one of those Olo clips or stuff like that.
No, totally.
I don't want to fumble with any of those things. I just care about that, number one. Number two, whether we like it or not, the iPhone 6s, the iPhone 6s Plus, and the 6 Plus were the battery life kings. And I've been really disappointed with the Galaxy Note 7, mainly because of its battery life. I feel that every other phablet in the market has really focused a lot on providing a ton of features, but not improving one of the main reasons why the phablet market became so famous years ago. If you guys remember, the Galaxy Note 3 was the king of battery life back in the day. That Snapdragon 800 processor. I mean, the phone was amazing for trade show coverage and everything, and now you and I have to be hauling battery packs everywhere we go because these phones are just not reliable enough. So I'm really excited about the iPhone 7 Plus, like I haven't been over any other iPhone in the past, for those two particular reasons. I really want to give a try to that camera.
And you'd be really willing to get the 5.5-inch model and just stuff it down your pants.
Well, I already do that with a Note. I did a comparison between the Galaxy Note 7 and the iPhone 6s Plus. The size difference is not substantial. I do feel that Apple could do a better job designing it. Like, for example, Juan
using a large screen
mean,
on Android versus on iOS. That's a big difference.
Look at the size of my hands, and I can't even touch the power button. I feel that Apple. I mean, come on, Apple.
Well, and all of the criticisms of the fact that it is a 5.5-inch screen and something that is normally in the size surface area territory of phones with 5.7 and almost 6-inch screens in some cases, depending on how they build in bezel space.
People have been cramming that stuff in. It's amazing to see how engineering works.
I have to say, like, this year for Apple and me has actually been pretty positive. I know a lot of people, and likely a lot of people are going to hammer me on this in the live chat, is I thought the iPhone SE was a really smart reply to this market of $400 phones is starting to creep up. You're never going to fully escape the Apple tax, but I have so many members of my family who are actually really excited about a phone that can replace their iPhone 5s and that they don't have to buy new cases for, but they get a much better camera and a faster processor and a better fingerprint sensor. So now moving into the iPhone 7, I'm happy to see some style issues addressed. I don't love the look of the antenna bands on the pink and silver versions.
Oh, they're terrible. They're terrible.
They still have those weird white cutouts that don't.
Unless you get jet black. Unless you get jet black. That's the only phone that's going to do a better job with that, and obviously the matte black, which is the other option.
Don't we feel that this is a little uncharacteristic? Because I'm going to start with just the fashion side of this, because Apple really has built themselves up into a lifestyle brand more than a tech-first company.
Yeah.
Don't we feel that this is kind of an uncharacteristic misstep for those versions of the iPhone where wouldn't it make more sense to make those bands more in keeping with the color of the phone? Like have pink bands on the rose gold version.
I've been done fighting about antenna bands and design with Apple. They get to decide what they want to do.
They gave us black bands on the black iPhone, and I think that was a smarter play.
Just remember the launch of the iPhone 3GS. If you wanted to get the white iPhone 3GS, you had to go for the 32 gigabyte model. It was only available in that variant, and it sold out like immediately. They're just making one model more aspirational than the other. That's what they're doing.
Well, that's what
Apple is really
a brand than a technology company, right? Every new season brings that season's variant. New for this season is rose gold. New for this season is piano jet black. But what I mean is, why?
That's been an evolving step.
No. But what my point is, why produce an iPhone in pink and have these weird, non-completed antenna band lines that also are not pink? That to me is the misstep for Apple.
Probably the material doesn't look good in pink. I mean, probably
it takes up color from your jeans. Like, it's not really the most ideal thing to have.
But ultimately, though, when we're actually talking about the tech, and I actually wrote an editorial on this on Pocketnow, is there are so many little tech aspects and lifestyle aspects on this phone that, like the iPhone SE, I'm feeling very positive about this iPhone, even though I am not particularly an iOS fan. I'm really curious to play with Apple's approach to a dual camera sensor. Obviously, we've been looking at dual camera sensors in real consumer-facing products since HTC delivered 3D on an Evo and then moved to dual sensors on the M8. And then Huawei has a different approach to the P9, where both of the sensors have the same focal length. And now we're looking at Apple carrying on in the same conversation that LG had this year, where the two sensors have different focal lengths. So you have a normal field of view and a really, really wide field of view. Apple's approach obviously being a normal field of view and then giving us a 2x zoom. So we've got
28 and 56. And I agree. I think Panther Z is asking the right question with the PN Weekly hashtag. Is a 2x zoom really a zoom worth mentioning, or is it? In my case, is it even worth having that extra benefit of just 2x is
Well, I think, I mean, when you were composing your shot at Checkpoint Charlie and we were dodging that McDonald's with all of their Checkpoint cheesy signs,
I really wanted to get rid of that KFC, dude. The KFC
killing me.
Was what I was so crazy about getting rid of. But it's so this is the problem. Why did I like the LG G5 so much? I mean, they made a compelling point over a wide-angle lens being so useful to you, because there are places like, for example, in Barcelona, you want to take a photo of Sagrada Familia. There's a point where there's a fence behind you, and you just cannot go back. And if you want to take a photo of the full church, it would involve trees if you can't walk any further back. So in the case of I've also been met with cases where I really want to take a cool photo of something that's far away. And so here's the thing. There is a 2x optical zoom, but apparently Apple has, and Apple has been famous for the way they play around with their cameras. I'll give you a perfect example. The iPhone 6 had 0 stabilization. I could go out running with the iPhone 6. It was very rare in Guatemala that there's a specific volcano that emerges early in the morning, and it only happens certain days of the week, depending on the amount of humidity. Obviously, I didn't want to stop running, but I really wanted to take a photo of the damn volcano.
Right.
I would pull out the phone in a life proof running. I run at 830 minutes per mile, which is not slow.
That's a good clip, yeah.
830 is a good clip, yeah.
It was not slow. I would pull out the phone like this, running, take the shot, put it back in, finish my run, and I knew that the photo would be stable. How did Apple pull that off? I have no clue. With no stabilization. So they are offering up to 10x zoom in a sort of a software play that they're going to be doing with both lenses. How are they going to pull it off? I don't know. That's the reason why I'm curious. I cannot wait to get my unit and give it a try. And you're going to be doing that real camera review as well, Juan. I'm sure that there will be, more of a. I'm sure that there will be usage scenarios where we'll find the need for it. And for me, I would rather have it than not have it at all. I mean, for $100 more, if I can get all these features, I would have preferred, obviously, to have them on the smaller iPhone as well. But if I have to go plus try, I will. I found myself in cases where I need the zoom and it's not there. You have to walk into that, and there are cases where you're going to get run over by a car or something if you do.
Yeah. Well, I don't want this to be is a token implementation, because first of all, you're taking 2 shots at once with both cameras. So if you're taking 1 picture, you're actually taking 2. And the software is that when you're pinching the zoom, you'll be on that first wider angle picture when you zoom in, and then once you hit 2x, you get sent to the
that would be like the opposite of LGs,
zooms,
where you can zoom in and it's a digital crop, and then once you start pulling back out again, once you hit a certain threshold, it pops you over to the wide angle camera too.
And in that purpose, I think it doesn't 2x is inadequate, because you still get very decent detail up until maybe 3 or 4x. So why not go farther instead?
I know though.
I think so. I think so, and it doesn't. And I know, glass may be an issue for them. If it's 28, don't know how far you can pull them.
I guess my main curiosity, how Apple is going to handle things like low light. I know that the telephoto lens has less aperture, as is usually expected. But one of the main reasons why I avoid zooming whenever I'm filming is mainly because of that amount of aperture that's lost whenever you start zooming the lens closer to whatever product it is you're reviewing. And there are cases where I need the low light, where I would rather approach the subject just to have that low light available to me. So, listen, Apple is not the company, they've done a few gimmicks last year with the iPhone 6S. Still, Apple is not really famous for gimmicks. They're famous for, trying things out repeatedly until they get it right before they launch it on a product. So, again, I've seen so many attempts at optical zoom, and they've either looked terrible or the implementation has been bad. I mean, I remember the Galaxy camera. You had the 10x optical zoom. No, what was it? It was 20x optical zoom, but then they used the sensor of the Galaxy S4. I was like, why don't you just, sell me an adapter for it and give me? It was terrible because of the sensor. So, I mean, Apple is investing a lot in the sensor. There is this new ISP that they're calling the image. They gave it the name
sensing processor.
Image sensing processor. Hey, maybe we're in for a surprise. I mean, Apple became really famous ever since the iPhone 4 for image quality. It took competitors. It literally took Samsung. Imagine iPhone 4 was 2010. Samsung wasn't really able to compete against Apple in digital photography until the Galaxy S6.
No, I think the Note 4.
Oh, well, the Note 4, but it was a very clunky camera. Remember that.
The Note 4 was fine.
It was a really slow phone.
No, because the S6 only just brought back the features from the Note 4. There was a little software polish, but the Note 4 camera
True, but the difference between them is 4 months in launch cycles.
Well, yeah, but...
So just think about it. That was, 2014? It took Samsung 4 years to catch up with Apple. 4 years. So I'm curious to see what we get, I guess.
Yeah, well, not only curious, but because I'm kind of with you. I have every expectation that this is going to be a really smooth performer, that now we're going to have access to other apps being able to capture the raw data. I think that's a really big deal. I don't believe we'll see that in the actual iPhone camera app. But just the fact that you'll have access to it, just like we see on a number of Android phones, the stock camera app might not have the ability to capture RAW, but you can still get it if you use a third-party camera app, especially with the number of iPhone third-party camera apps available. So little things like that, I think, are going to be nice updates for things like content creation. Of course, because we've been getting so many comments about it, we had to put it in the title of this video. Jaime, how you feeling about losing the headphone jack? What do you think about Apple's solution for plugging headphones in and then also maybe moving customers over to a wireless standard?
Let's forget about the wireless standard. I am definitely not going to spend a dime on that.
Explain first. So we've got earpods that are going to come in the box.
Okay,
hold on. No, Jules.
So these are
We've got earpods that are going to come in the box that have a Lightning connector on them. Then there's also going to be a Lightning connector adapter, so that you can plug in regular 3.5 millimeter headphones. And then one of the major announcements from this show was a pair of Bluetooth wireless earpods called AirPods that have these little white antennas that stick out past your ears. And so that's what you're saying, Jaime, you're not going to touch those. That's not your jam. That's not what you're looking for.
So here's the thing. These are my Apple earpods. The only reason I'm using them right now is because these are my go-to headphones for the Mac. Because I can control music with them, and I can control the volume levels of the Mac with the controllers. But I never use these headphones on an iPhone or on any smartphone or on the go for many reasons. Number one, because my ears are dramatically small and petite, and because they are, these earpods are constantly falling off my ear up to the point where I have to be investing in these gels. You can get it for $10 on Amazon, and so these give you wings that snap the ear pod into your ear. So I tweeted about this when Apple announced it. The tweet blew up because I was like, I cannot wait to lose my first AirPod, and I'm just going to lose one. I'm sure that I'm just going to lose one, not two,
Right.
because those things fall off. I feel that when it comes to ergonomics, they're terrible. $169 for a pair of AirPods that are not ergonomic at all.
No, what they need are noise
and I really wanted to get
beats.
your opinion on this, Jaime, because you were the one on the show floor. I got to go visit them, but you did this great video on Jabra.
Mm-hmm.
Jabra has a wireless earbud solution, and then also I think Sony Labs is looking at coming out.
Sony has it. Samsung has their Icon X. Sadly, I haven't been able to actually try a pair. From the Jabra, I've been a Jabra customer for years, but not for audio. I've been a Jabra customer because I feel that they make the best fitness headphones ever.
Yeah.
For me, because I sweat like a machine, and I've invested in Bose. Out of my own money, I've paid for Bose fitness headphones. I've paid for a lot of variants, and none have survived the way I sweat like Jabra have. They do amazing water resistance, and they have great audio. I guess the problem with those Jabra headphones is that they only have 3 hours of battery life. For me, that's terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But the cool thing is, if they would tell me, okay, I'll remove the heart rate monitor because I really don't use it on a pair of headphones. I've already got my watch doing it. Both of them are just accurate. If you're not using a band on your chest, it's pointless.
Yeah.
So I would rather remove that hour of battery life. But I love that these headphones from Jabra have the wings that I'm talking about. So you're sure that they're secure on your ear whenever you're using them. They've got 4 microphones for voice cancellation.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got all the music controls embedded on these headphones, and you can use them in mono or in stereo, however it is that you want. In the case of the AirPods, you have some of that functionality. For me, the problem is the design. The fact that this plastic is really slippery, they're going to fall off your ear. And I can only imagine the next trip on the subway when people are going to start knowing what AirPods are. They're going to know that they cost $169, and it's going to be a simple walk behind you, grab them from your ear, and take off.
And bolt. Right, exactly.
And
so
take off.
I was also going to ask, because I have refused to put earpods into my ears since the very first iPhone that they came with, which I've already forgotten which one that is.
iPhone 5.
The iPhone 5. So you've used the earpods. How do you feel that they rank for, 1, listening to music, and then 2, soundtracking a workout in blocking sound around you?
No, they are. Okay, so it's funny. These earpods, if you listen to reviews of mine from years ago, I would use the old iPhone microphone as my microphone for these reviews. The first Pocketnow dailies were recorded with that microphone. It was really good. The microphone on this is bad. There's terrible noise cancellation. And the only thing that's a benefit for me is the fact that I can control the audio on my Mac, and that's the reason why I use them here. But you saw me, Juan. I use a pair of LG over-the-ear headphones.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, they don't provide the greatest. They're very loud, but they're not deep at all.
Gotcha.
They're very loud, and that's just about it. So, but the problem is that the average consumer is, not going to be looking around and investing $150, $160, $170 on a pair of headphones. If the phone came with a pair of headphones and all they're going to use them for is while they commute on the subway, the last thing they're going to want to do is invest on them. So, that's the reason why earpods are so famous, simply because they come in the box.
Right.
They're
the most popular just because they're the most accessible.
They're the ones that come in the box. You buy an iPhone and they come included. That's the only reason. I hate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They're plain, and then you tease Beats with like 3 products using the W1 chip. That's going to be, using Bluetooth with that special sauce, whatever Apple is doing.
And the whole point of the W1 chip is simply being able to talk to iOS products easily. Yeah. I find that cool. I find it cool that all I do is I like that the AirPods have 5 hours of battery life. That's a benefit. I love that they have an accelerometer, so they don't need buttons. You just tap on them, and they'll respond for Siri or stuff like that. I wonder how they're going to be able to control music, because that's one of the major deals. People use these controls a lot on EarPods. I don't know how Apple's going to pull that off, but okay, that's one thing. The second thing is the 5-hour battery life. The third thing is you pair them with one iOS product, and then through iCloud, it'll bring that pairing
Transfer
to
all
the
the
Mac.
settings. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I love that about Apple. You know, that simplicity where I know that if I logged on to my Google account on the Mac, because I have iCloud Keychain on the Mac, it'll transfer that login to my phone, to my tablet, to everything. It makes it seamless. So that's really cool. But
I admire that it can just work. I'm just saying that, you know, if Beats, you know, goes out with the Solo maybe and, you know, prices it at $199, they're just shooting themselves in the foot.
well, I think that, yeah, they are. Because those, I mean, I'm sorry, those AirPods look terrible. They just do. I mean, think about it. There's no appeal to them. They look terrible.
So here's a question that I had about earpods in this Apple ecosystem, because I'm really glad that both of you sort of brought up that for the AirPods, you know, there's your Apple account sort of helps manage the security for which devices are going to be pairing with this piece of hardware. Now, I know a lot of people that just use their smartphone headphones to also plug into things like laptops and tablets. And so do we think, will there be some kind of adapter? You get your earpods, you have your iPhone 7, then you walk over to your MacBook, which has a USB-C port on there. Is there going to be some pass-through or another adapter that we need to buy?
Because if
the one chip is going to be there for just Mac, Apple, iOS devices, it's still running on Bluetooth. That is the
no. Earpods, not AirPods.
No, okay. So here's the thing. I'm trying to remember who I was talking to yesterday. See, that's going to be the nightmare. For example, if you just bought yourself a new MacBook, the new MacBook doesn't have a Lightning connector. There is no Mac with a Lightning connector. So, right. you know, Apple is like breaking mold here, and the reason why they're including that adapter of Lightning to 3.5 millimeter is because you're kind of going to need it.
Yeah, you need one transition device.
But then that's the problem. I won't be able to use those earpods on the Mac because there isn't a backwards. So I don't think that there is a Lightning to 3.5 millimeter connector, the backwards.
Right.
The male, yeah. Their thinking on that I'm hearing myself with the feedback. This is fun.
Happened to you too now.
Yeah, this disease is spreading. So with the earpods going in, like the adapters there, because they assume that they have that users have a really nice pair of headphones that they want to use anyways, besides the earpods. So I think that's a tacit admission that you really don't want to be using earpods because they recognize that you have other products, and if you're going to put in a 3.5 millimeter headphone into the adapter, then Apple's kind of sort of lost the battle on.
And we've had a number of questions. We've had a number of questions from people about things like backwards compatibility. So let's say you get new earpods. Will they work? Earpods with a Lightning connector, will they work on older Macs? Like, can you plug them into an iPad? And as far as I can tell, obviously we're going to have to test some of this stuff. As far as I can tell, that won't work. I think
earpods on an iPad will, as long as there's a Lightning connector, they'll work.
Well, but that's just it.
If you have a fifth generation iPod Touch, which has a Lightning connector, they will work.
Well, but we don't know that yet.
They will work. It's just the Lightning protocol is the same.
So no. The Lightning protocol for data is the same. But
so the protocol was expanded with iOS 8. There have been Lightning headphones ever since iOS 8, and all iOS 8 devices and after are compatible for Lightning audio.
But do we know that those other Lightning devices don't have their own DAC?
Why wouldn't they?
Well, no, that's the point I'm trying to make, is if a pair of headphones have their own DAC, then it's just the data from the device going through the Lightning connector, and then the phone is responsible for producing its own sound.
Pretty much.
If these earpods, so when we see a 3.5 millimeter adapter, there is no way that has its own DAC.
No, it's in the phone.
Right?
The phone does the job.
If it's in the phone, then that means Apple is taking pinouts and wiring, which would have went to the 3.5 millimeter adapter, and is rerouting them to extra pins on the Lightning connector.
Mm-hmm.
If that audio isn't being routed on an older device, then newer earpods will not work unless those earpods have their own DAC, and I don't think earpods have their own DAC.
You're the audio expert, my friend. You will be able to tell.
No, but that's what I mean. So when it comes to just the data, you're right. If your headphones have their own DAC and their own amp built into the headphones, then they'll work on anything with a Lightning connector, because that's just a USB style audio connection. But to actually generate the sound waves that we listen to, you need a DAC and an amp. If these earpods are relying on a special rewiring of a DAC and amp built into the phone, then older products will not be able to use these newer devices.
So rumor a little bit a while back showed the little adapter as a pre-release thing, or like something they got from Foxconn Vietnam factory, and they tested it out and with one of their older earpods, and I believe it worked. And it even said, like the iPhone that was running iOS 9 could not recognize the adapter.
So this is something that I just wrote on Pocketnow. So I've got a Moto Z, and the Moto Z doesn't have a headphone jack, but it has a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter. Yes. This is a standard USB-C plug. But if I take this plug and I try and plug it into another phone, which does have a 3.5 millimeter adapter, these don't talk to each other. There is no standardized yet. There is no standardized
the adapter, no.
Amp.
The adapter, no. But if you get a pair of JBL headphones with a USB-C connector that were pretty much designed to provide audio through the phone, I believe that they should work, because USB-C on its own does support audio.
This is like, also, I would say with JBL, they're probably including their own DAC.
It's there has to be something there. I mean, this is like the early days of Bluetooth. You remember the early days of Bluetooth where depending on the version of Bluetooth that the product had, it could support keyboards or joysticks but it couldn't support audio. It didn't have what was it, A2DP? I think that was the
big, like, exciting transition.
Yeah, whenever Bluetooth 3 hit, it was like major. But yeah, I feel that there will be a transition period. Listen, this is like Apple. Apple has done this so many times. They launched the first iMac, they got rid of the disk drive, the diskette, and everybody said that Apple was crazy. The funny thing is, Apple is not the first company to get rid of the headphone jack. Oppo had done it before. HTC, I mean, think about it. Pocket PC smartphones did not bring a headphone jack. Apple was the company that brought it back with the first iPhone. But if you used an HTC or a QTech or any of these Pocket PCs that we used years ago, none of these brought a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Everything was connected to the mini. It was to the mini USB connector back in the day.
Right.
Hi, May. Oh, yeah. All I have to say to that is courage.
Yeah.
Courage.
Apple has the courage, that magic courage that helps us move forward in this tech industry that no other company except for Oppo and Leica and Motorola have or had before Apple managed to find their courage.
This is not new. One thing that I do know, and you and I had the conversation, Juan, and I don't know if I think that I would like to end my comments with that. If we want higher quality audio from a smartphone, I don't think that it would be that easy to do with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. How old is it?
I don't think that's another thing too, is the age of a cable standard really doesn't mean that standard is obsolete. We're capable of driving a 32-bit audio signal over a 3.5 millimeter.
Yes, but you need what within the phone?
A nice DAC.
Okay, how big is it?
Well, we currently have them in HTCs.
I know, but I guess the point is, I guess the point is
into earbud.
I guess the point is these companies want to reduce the size of phones. They want to make them thinner and lighter, and so I guess I would have loved for Apple to include a USB-C connector on the iPhone. And if they want to charge through Lightning, then great. I don't care. Right. But I guess the biggest complaint is the only problem with me using Lightning is, shoot, I don't only have an iPhone.
Right.
And what if I want to spend $200, $300 on a great pair of headphones, but these are USB-C?
Well, and USB-C is going to be the standard that wins because we know Apple's going to be shifting over their products to be using USB-C on things like MacBooks. So
exactly,
Lightning now looks like this odd outside player. It's just Lightning is also going to be the connector used on the single most purchased solitary line of phones in existence.
Which is that solitary line is the one that sells the most accessories, sadly.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Whether we like it or not. So I hate the lack. For example, even the MacBook. Again, Apple's MacBook doesn't have a Lightning entry.
Right.
It has USB-C and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So I'm sure that MacBook owners are scratching their heads. It's just that fragmentation that I hate. But am I mad that the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack is dying? No, actually, I'm not. I'm actually ready for higher quality audio that can be done digitally through a different protocol.
Again, I'll be really curious to see if that actually comes to pass, though, because it all comes down to a DAC and an amp, and all we're doing is moving where that DAC and amp are. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily believe that that's really going to provide us with higher quality audio. I think what we're going to end up with eventually are phones that don't have this hardware built into them, the DAC and amp built into them, because we'll then have to buy headphones that do. And I don't think that's going to, all we're doing is migrating. So you'll still have, for most consumers, we'll still have crappy DACs and amps that are built into headphones, and then you'll have to spend significantly more to have the DAC and amp be nicer in nicer headphones.
Okay, but tell me something, Juan. How does this work? The clip mics that we use. You're the expert on how Sennheiser was able to pull a $700 mic element and make it work on an iPad.
So what we've got is that extra little dongle that's sort of built in there.
Yeah.
Is communicating with the hardware built into the iPad. So it requires extra lumps or extra pieces that are going to be sticking off of the main unit.
Right. Well, I mean, if they were able to,
it's all about signal processing, you know. So
I am really impressed with this microphone, man. I mean, I'm really impressed, and it's all enabled through Lightning.
Well, yeah, but that's also because there's a big lump on the cable that allows.
Yes, but would that big lump have worked through a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack? Is the question.
Well, that's only if Apple had included the microphone connection to be of a higher quality on the iPad or the iPhone. There's not a lot of contact there for a single input.
Hey guys,
but the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, again, that's not necessarily the determining factor of quality.
Jules, you want to move on, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, we do actually have to hit because we only have a little time left. So we have to touch on Apple
We have
Watch.
10 minutes for the Apple Watch, and you know what? I'll just say it. GPS waterproof speakers done.
Ladies and gentlemen, I despise the Apple Watch. I will admit it. I spent $400 of my own money buying it, and I regret it. It's the clunkiest thing on the planet, the most convoluted and most confusing smartwatch in the market. Android Wear continues to be my favorite. Juan uses a Pebble like there's no tomorrow. I have to review the Apple Watch. I have to order it today. I am going to order the Nike variant, hopefully, just to see what the difference is.
Nice. Good call.
I'm a big Nike Plus user, so I would like to see what differences are there. I have no high hopes here because yes, they're adding a dual core processor now. Even if you buy the Apple Watch 1, you'll be getting that dual core processor. I think that was a smart move, but I think the problem is not a problem of hardware. It's a problem of software implementation. It is extremely convoluted and confusing. And, you know, Apple wants to force you to think that a smartwatch is about the apps. And I'm sorry, it's not. I can't even tell the difference between the timer and the clock in the Apple Watch. And I never do. I completely forget that the thing can handle apps. You know, all I care is what's on the complications on the sides, and that's pretty much it. What's at a glance available to me. Because if I'm going to have to be interacting and looking for an app to launch, I might as well just pull out the phone.
Right. No, absolutely. The longer I have interacting with the tiny little screen, the more I wish I should have just taken my phone out of my pocket. And exactly why I like the Pebble is that it's focused on a couple key features that I think it does really, really well. And then applets, I don't really care about. I guess the main question that I've got, and the one thing that I'd like to spend our last couple minutes on this podcast together on, again, Apple, lifestyle company, they're really trying to make their product more about, sort of incorporating people's style into it. It becomes that kind of a discussion on lifestyle. So with the Apple Watch 2 being almost exactly the same form factor and shell as the Apple Watch Series 1, do we think that consumers are going to adopt the newer product, or do we think that they're going to look at it, see that they look the same largely, and if that style fits their personal fashion, is there any incentive to moving to the Apple Watch 2?
I think that there will be a lot of Apple Watch 1s on eBay right now.
Yeah, that's true. I think there already are. And
I think that if people have already invested in liking the Apple Watch, because I know about 3 people out of 300 that actually do like the Apple Watch. And if hey, I just, listen, for me, the biggest problem with the Apple Watch is $400 for a stainless steel variant that has an Ion-X glass bottom. And then that glass bottom actually scratches with the charger. So what's the point about paying $400 for a watch that becomes really unreliable about its sensors over the course of 3 months because of the scratches on that bottom? I would rather buy this Polar M600 watch that I'm working on a review for this thing. My God, this thing is almost as accurate as a heart rate, as a chest strap.
Right.
And then, this thing costs half as much. It's got Android Wear. It could be your full watch if you want. If the bands tear at some point, you can snap the bands off, put something on. And hey, if you want to use a regular watch for the rest of the day, then you can. The problem is the Apple Watch tries to be everything. And sure, you can swim with it, but tell me, how many people do you know are swimmers? Very little.
Right.
We're about to go into the winter, so it's not like if you're going to take this thing to the pool. So that's definitely a usage scenario that's not going to exist. The only thing that I'm really stoked about is the GPS.
Yeah.
Because yes, GPS functionality, like the Apple Watch 1, was very inaccurate when running. It was pretty. Listen, the Apple Watch was the first smartwatch you could take out for a run without the phone. I give Apple that, but it was very inaccurate. Very inaccurate. Definitely. And so, that's the problem. You could run with an iPod Touch if you wanted to. Running with the Nike application, and the pedometer was very accurate on the damn iPod Touch. But then if you took the Apple Watch out, it was like night and day. So, I feel that it's the problem is the Apple Watch tries to be too many things. It is not durable enough to be that. So we'll see. We'll put it for its pace, and we'll see if it survives the testing.
Well, I think you'll see. I don't think I'm going to be spending any time with Apple Watch 2, so I'm going to be curious to see what you think. Just to wrap up here, we've got some more comments on the PN Weekly hashtag. Joel G. Joseph, he's upset that. Oh no, I'm sorry. We've got Panzer Z. Panzer Z is outraged that his Android Wear won't have that Pokemon Go app. Hopefully, we'll see that transition over. Some cool Pokemon Go features that tie directly into Apple Health, which I thought that was actually kind of cool. Seeing how whenever you have a fun app, it automatically sends your data over into Apple Health. So I think that's a pretty cool implementation. Same thing with at Fat Produce. Give me Pokemon Go on my LG Watch Urbane.
Or give me death.
Or give me death, exactly. I think the stakes are that high. So we also had a really funny photo come in from Fat Produce showing Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon. Advanced tech spacecraft that can travel faster than the speed of light still uses a headphone jack on that headset there. And then from at Nimbug, from my friend Damir, because we were talking about dual camera sensors. So what's next? Will there be a triple sensor for normal, wide, and telephoto lenses? And of course, someone instantly popped up the Light L16. If you haven't seen the Light L16, I would totally recommend checking out the images on that, because it's a crazy looking camera back with all these different cameras and distance and metering sensors on the back of it to hopefully improve your photography. So folks, there you have it. Another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. This show is ending, but the conversation continues on Twitter, where you can find Mr. Jaime Rivera as at Jaime __ Rivera.
There you go.
And of course, Jules is at Point Jules, and I'm humbly @SomeGadgetGuy. Pocketnow is around the web on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, and our home site, pocketnow.com. We're basically everywhere. Now, shows like this can't exist without your support. Sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, and by dropping some reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever podcast reviews can be left. And of course, we want to thank all of the people who were joining us in the live chat. This was our very first podcast on YouTube where you could join the live chat, and then all of the phenomenal conversation we had using Twitter and the hashtag PNWeekly hashtag. So you can join the conversation. We can easily find your questions and comments. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of delicious technology goodness. So make sure you tune back in.
I wish this show was about an hour longer.
We had so much to talk about. Woo!
Yeah.